Jai Shri Radhe. सब वैष्णवों को जय श्री कृष्ण सदैन्य सानंद सादर और जय श्री कृष्ण. Continuing the stories of the 252 Vaishnavas. Excuse me, please. Day 192 and Varta 178. The story of a pigeon couple. Bhav Prakash. These are devotees of Sattvic disposition. In the internal Leela, they are a pigeon couple. They are very dear to Sri Chandravali-ji. Why? Because they convey loving messages to Sri Thakurji and Sri Swamini-ji from each other. In this way, they nourish their divine loving sentiment. Thus, Sri Chandravali-ji has great affection for them and named them as Priti Nivahaka. And the male, that's the male, the one who supports love, and Pritamagamani, the female, the one who approaches the beloved. They both manifest from Sunanda and are thus personifications of her divine loving sentiment. Part 1. Once, Sri Gosaiji was travelling from Gokul to Gujarat. The Mahi river was in their path. It was flooding and did not abate even after a day and a night. They had to set up camp on the banks of the river. The next day they cooked and made their offerings there only. Sri Gosaiji offered the preparations and sat down for his Sandhya prayers. His cook approached and said that it was time to accept the offerings back as prasad. Sri Gosaiji asked him to do that himself. The cook asked, "O Maharaj, what do you mean? How can I do that myself?" Sri Gosaiji replied, "Today I shall not be partaking of prasad." The cook asked him why. Sri Gosaiji replied that day not a single embodied soul had come to him for spiritual refuge. Bhav Prakash. By saying this, Sri Gosaiji was stating that he comes to the earth for the sake of uplifting divine souls, that he would eat only after initiating some divine soul, otherwise the day was worthless and he would not wish to eat. Part 1. The manager and the cooks were all sat before him. They said, "O Maharaj, there is no village here and no one is around. Who will come to take shelter in you?" Sri Gosaiji asked, "Are there no birds or animals here?" His attendant piped up, "Yes, there are." Sri Gosaiji asked him to bring them. The attendant went to the store and asked for some grains to scatter. He spread them on the floor for the pigeon couple. As they pecked at the grains, they came close to Sri Gosaiji, and he blessed them by speaking the name of the Lord into their ears. They immediately realized their true forms as related to the divine couple and began to comprehend the whole scheme of their lives. After this, Sri Gosaiji went inside, accepted back the offerings, and partook of the prasad. He then came outside again and remarked, "Oh, now look, has the river abated?" Some men to look. They saw that it had indeed abated somewhat and would be crossable by evening. Sri Gosaiji told them all to be ready to cross over by that time. They did exactly this. They came to a village after 4 miles. They set up camp there for the night. They left there again in the morning and travelled to Rajnagar, where they stayed with Baila Kotari. Thereafter Sri Gosaiji went to Dwarkaji and back to Gokul. The pigeon couple flew off to a village where there were Vaishnavas who gathered for satsang and stayed there. Bhav Prakash. Why? Because they were now aware that they were divine souls and that they had spent many days of their life without listening to the songs and stories of the Lord. They now wanted to enjoy the happiness of listening to divine discourse, and so they flew to the Vaishnava gatherings. Part 1 continued. They would go and perch above the satsang meetings where the Lord's stories were being told and listen to the singing too. When the Vaishnavas were sharing out prasad, they saw the pigeons and remarked that they had not moved from their perch, that they were listening in on the satsang. They put some prasad in front of them and they all began to peck at it. Then they began to pet the pigeons. Still they did not fly away. When the Vaishnavas addressed each other with the Lord's name, the pigeons nodded their heads. Then they flew to a nearby garden and made their nest in a tree. There they began to discuss the stories and songs they had listened to. In the morning they would fly from there and go to find food. They came back and sat in the nest chanting the Lord's name. In the evening they went again to the satsang. They sat and listened, and the Vaishnavas would pet them. They did not fly off. When the Vaishnavas went home, so did the pigeons. They sat in their nest reciting the Lord's name. The king of that village, part 2, this is part 2, the king of that village suffered from leprosy. He had tried many herbal remedies. He had asked many doctors but found no cure. One herbalist came there from the south, and the king asked him what he should do, that he had tried so many things. The doctor replied that it was quite simple, that he should catch a couple of pigeons and put them in a cage. They would then be killed and medicine made out of them. The king agreed to have some pigeons caught. The herbal doctor said he would come the next day to prepare the medicine. The king agreed and told his men to go and catch some pigeons. They tried but did not succeed. One of them used to go to the Vaishnava satsang. He asked the king, "What will you be doing with the pigeons?" The king said he just wanted to see them. The man agreed to bring the 2 pigeons from there to the king so that he might see them. That night he attended the satsang. The pigeons were also there, and after the satsang the man caught the pigeons and put them in a cage. The Vaishnavas all asked him why he was doing this, and he said that he should let them go. The man said that the king just wanted to see them. I shall show him and then bring them back. The man took the pigeons to the king, who saw them and ordered them to be kept in that cage. When the time came for the evening satsang, the man came and asked the pigeon couple, "Why has the king put you in this cage?" The male pigeon replied, "The king has leprosy, and the herbalist doctor told him that he will get better by killing 2 pigeons and making medicine from them, that the leprosy would thus be cured. Today our bodies will be useful to someone else." Bhav Prakash. This story tells us that a Vaishnava's dharma is such that their birth will only be worthwhile if their body can be of some benefit to someone else. Otherwise, being born into a physical body is worthless. There is no better dharma of life duty than to benefit others. The pigeon couple embraced this knowledge through Sri Gosaiji's great grace. Through his grace, too, they had a vision into their future. They had thereby gained great resilience, and that is why they were able to speak in this way. The male pigeon again said, "If the king uses our excrement as a medicine, he will be cured." The king heard him say this, for he understood the language of birds. He took all the birds' excrement out of the cage and rubbed it all over his body, and his leprosy was cured. The king immediately opened the cage, and the 2 pigeons flew up and went to the Vaishnava satsang. They listened to the Lord's pastimes, and the Vaishnavas were very happy to see them. They spoke among themselves. "We heard about the unfortunate events, that the king was about to kill them. However, they have taken shelter in Sri Gosaiji, and therefore no one can harm them. The king's leprosy was cured just by applying their excrement. Sri Gosaiji is so powerful." The pigeons lived happily ever after this, and constantly meditated on Sri Gosaiji. Bhav Prakash. Therefore, Gopal Das Ji wrote in his Vallabhakyan, "Any and all sentient or insentient beings who take exclusive shelter in Sri Gosaiji are immediately filled with happiness." Thus concludes Varta 178, the story of the pigeon couple who received Sri Gosaiji's grace and who are accomplished Vaishnavas. There is no end to their tale. Wah, Aaj ke Anand ki jai ho. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. सब वैष्णवों को जय श्री कृष्ण, श्री वल्लभ आचार्य जी की जय, श्री गोसाई जी की जय, जय जय श्री राधे।